Brilliant ideas, powered by Hyundai Motor.
Some of the greatest triumphs of British culture and the jewels in the crown are its vast country houses with exquisitely formal gardens. The grandest of these is Blenheim Palace near Oxford, built in the English Baroque style by architectural genius John Vanbrugh. Home to the Churchill family, it houses a wealth of gilded portraits by master artists. Its latest artwork may baffle and intrigue. Radical and surprising, it's the work of Italian artist Michelangelo Pistoletto.
He comes with humble materials but big ideas, so I think that his ideas will square up to the bombastic scale of Blenheim very naturally.
My work, it doesn't want to be destructive of the past. It wants just to stimulate something different.
Pistoletto is one of those artists who has this huge career behind him, you know, really innovative, great work that kind of broke through after the stranglehold of minimalism and began to engage with materials and technologies and ideas that were much more to do with art and life.
He's a visionary. I consider him a maestro for myself. He is not scared about breaking rules and going beyond what people usually think is barriers.
Michelangelo Pistoletto is today celebrated as a groundbreaking contemporary artist. He's a founding father of the Arte Povera movement in the 60s, known for his mirror paintings and art made from modest materials. He's even brought new life to his hometown of Biella in northern Italy and created a vast art complex, Cittadelarte. But his Eureka moment came when looking in a mirror, trying to paint a self-portrait.
I remember the moment I understood to be an artist. It was when I started to paint my face on the black mirror reflective. And I understood that something was happening. It was an epiphany. The moment I made my face there in a very quick way, I felt the entire world entering the painting. I said, but this is the function of the system of art, is to understand, not only to make. But all that happened in 1 minute, and I felt very shocked, I can say. I felt very shocked. I had to stop and think a little bit and go on after to make the rest of the body. I discovered that art was the space of freedom.
Pistoletto was born in 1933 and grew up in the Piedmont region of northern Italy. His father was profoundly deaf, but worked as a painter and art restorer. As a boy, Pistoletto would help his dad in the workshop. But times were turbulent. Italy was in the grip of fascist rule and entered the Second World War on the side of Germany.
When I was a child, during the war, I was pushed to make my best in order to be a good boy. And everybody around was making their worst because the society was really creating problems everywhere. The Americans were bombing us and the SS were bringing people to the camps. So it was a terrible condition. I was forced to believe in God and in Mussolini at that time. I was not happy in that society, and I thought that my freedom would have been necessary in order to find a solution for myself to survive, and at the same time, if it was possible, to transform the society in a way to not have other people suffering as I had to suffer.
Pistoletto realized that in order to be a force for good, art needed to be inclusive. As he started out as an artist, he experimented with the ideas of bringing the viewer and their world into the picture. A revelation that began with his own self-portraits.
As a young man, some of the things that he restored with his father were Byzantine icons, in which the background to the figure is simply pure gold. You can see how the gold background in his own paintings would lead to the mirror, so he began experimenting with polished stainless steel mirrors.
At the beginning, I made the mirror painting with my image. But immediately, I started to take an element of the life into the mirror painting. In the mirror, I always put a figure that represents the instant that has been captured by the mirror.
The mirror is significant in his works because it brings the viewer into the frame, rather than the viewer being a passive, external figure who's privileged to look at the work. The viewer sees themselves in a position in which they're constantly changing.
I like this concept that you live life every single moment. The moment is now, but in 5 minutes it can become something totally different.
Mirror reflections had also been a preoccupation of his father. But where Pistoletto Sr. painted his own image reflecting in a traditional still life, fixing the moment in a never-changing time, Michelangelo uses his mirrors to continuously reflect the image of the viewer looking at the painting. The mirror paintings brought Pistoletto international acclaim in the early 1960s. He exhibited frequently in New York City, then at its cultural peak and capital of the avant-garde. Pop art had taken hold, and Pistoletto was taken in as a pop artist, but had misgivings.
He reacted against the commodification of art, and that, for him, was the start of the whole arte povera idea, using humble, worthless materials that are more difficult to sell, that don't relate easily to the notion of consumerism.
Pop art is emphasizing the market system, and I didn't want that because my work was based with human being and world, universe and humanity. I thought that it was important to escape that conception of trademark.
Back in Italy, Pistoletto's commitment to engage others in his artistic experiments led him to open his studio and take the work onto the streets. In the late 60s, one of his art happenings saw him roll his large sphere of newspapers around Turin. He recreated this happening in London 40 years later.
Rolling the sphere into the street, I made a walking sculpture. Immediately the people in the street were taking possession of the work. Without asking, is art, is not art. But the sphere is something that attracts the people, and people start to play. And the society will not ask is a value of the art in the sense of the economy, but a value in the sense of participation.
Attempting to escape the system of consumerism at the basis of pop art, Pistoletto became one of the leading proponents of arte povera, a movement originating in Italy as a deliberate provocation against art commercialization. Artists made work using mundane materials, rope, newspaper, rags, with a desire to bridge the gap between everyday life and art. Pistoletto's cheeky combination of the classic and the contemporary would become a significant work in the movement. Italian artist Michelangelo Pistoletto is now in his 9th decade and still working. He achieved international acclaim for his mirror paintings and became the driving force in the art movement arte povera.
Arte povera, it doesn't mean poor in the sense that is without money, but it is concentration in what is essential, what is the basic concept of life.
Arte povera is reintroducing a dynamic relationship with nature, bringing nature back into the world in reaction against the man-made manufacturing process.
Pistoletto's use of recycled materials would create the icon for Arte povera, Venus of the Rags.
I had many rags in my studio because I use it for cleaning the mirror paintings. And in the street, I have seen a Venus of cement, and I said, I want to bring that to my studio. And when I was in my studio, automatically I connected her with the rags that they were already there. The Venus is embracing the rags. Without her, they will fall down. And it's making her job of keeping the rags. So it's an integration, putting together two opposites.
Pistoletto's art is inevitably political with a small p. It involves the world in which we live, how we relate to society around us, and the things we all confront every day.
Pistoletto's ideas of integrating the past and present has led him to create projects to shape the future. He's returned to his birthplace, Biella, in order to regenerate defunct woolen mills and create a huge art complex known as Cittadelarte.
Cittadelarte used to be a non-place. It used to be a lost mill, a dead place on the river, and it has become a place where people come, relate to each other, dream, create, to find themselves again.
I bought a space here in Biella in order to implement my activity of connection with art and society. I thought that was not necessary to build new houses, also for sustainability reasons. I think we have to use what already is empty and reconstruct.
Over the past 2 decades, these 5 acres of repurposed mill factories have become his home and where Pistoletto has established a thriving community. 400 artists pass through each year to research and create. Visitor spaces include art galleries featuring Pistoletto's own collection.
Cittadelarte is still in the process of changing Biella. Michelangelo's community has created here the Third Paradise sign. So in Biella, there is the home of the Third Paradise.
Pistoletto's Third Paradise is an idea for a way of living that he's most proud of. Unveiled at the Venice Biennale in 2005, the Third Paradise is Pistoletto's peace sign, an expansion of the mathematical infinity symbol that's gone global.
The Third Paradise is a symbol that everybody can use in order to change something in their life. It's a very simple symbol that put together two opposites, good and bad, nice and horrible. But in the center, these two opposites, they produce something that didn't exist. So it is the symbol of the creation. So we have to put the monster in one side and the good in the other side in order to make a balance, because we are all monsters and good people. But we have to find the middle solution.
The Third Paradise has seen multiple different incarnations, many of which use natural materials and the human form.
The Third Paradise is about natural and artificial. We cannot live in a world that is only natural, and we cannot live in a world that is only artificial. Unless the human being reconnects the two, there is no future.
He's putting forward the idea of the Third Paradise as an idea that anybody can use. It is without copyright. I mean, there's nothing to stop multinational companies putting it on T-shirts. A child can use the logo on a wall. So he's doing something rather unusual, detaching the ideas from himself and just putting them in the world for everybody to use in whatever way they want.
One is very simple, and it's a bread loaf, which has the shape of the third paradise. It was not created by him, but it was generated by his vision. So this, for me, it has it all, because bread is a symbol in itself, and the third paradise in bread is just beautiful.
Pistoletto now plans to bring the third paradise to Britain's Blenheim Palace. Using more discarded rags, it'll be the centrepiece of the exhibition, which will also feature a large assembly of old favourites and newer, provocative work.
Pistoletto is really a phenomenal artist. He's continued to challenge the way that people look at art, but I think more importantly, he's actually evolved from studying himself as a subject from the 1960s to really work with art that transforms society.
Integrated effort.
Michelangelo Pistoletto has journeyed from Italy for the final instalment of his exhibition at the family home to the Duke of Marlborough, Blenheim Palace. This World Heritage site will host 56 of his artworks, transforming the plush surroundings with the rags of his arte povera and more playful, incongruous objects. And his obsession with mirrors has free rein here. But Pistoletto is not here to wreak havoc with the beauty of the palace. He's here to make connections. Placement of his work is key. These oversized trumpets in the birthplace of Winston Churchill hark back to the dark days of World War II and Mussolini's radio propaganda. For Pistoletto, it means a great deal to be here, where he feels part of a shared history.
The place for me is very respectable because Churchill was a great person that I appreciate from when I was young. For me, Churchill was the hope during the war. We were listening to Radio Londra, and the name that was every day repeated was Churchill and Churchill and Churchill. And it became like the human hope through the radio. And we were in the worst time I've been through.
We shall strive to resist him by land and sea. We shall be on his track wherever he goes. Our air power will continue to teach the German homeland that war is not all loot and triumph.
I feel fantastic that we can meet Churchill finally, even if he's not there, but for reason of peace, and not reason of war anymore.
It's absolutely stunning. The interaction of the work with the environment is something that I think really speaks about the quality of the work, because it doesn't disrupt the historical setting, it doesn't overlay it with contemporary thought, but it creates a dialogue.
The most emotionally significant work might be the huge painting, Does God Exist? Yes, I Do, and I think it's quite a provocative work.
When I saw that work in the room there, I was very happy because I thought that was a great provocation. I put my question, is God existing? I don't know, but I know that I exist. I exist, and existing, I create God.
You know, it's not immediately obvious that something that's so contrasting to the rest of the room would fit. But this is the genius of Michelangelo. He manages to take things that you don't think necessarily would make something beautiful and create something beautiful. And to that degree, he's a real alchemist.
In another room, Pistoletto's newspaper sphere has stopped rolling and has been caged within meridian lines representing the world.
For the exhibition, I made a special sphere made with English newspaper of the day of the election, to be in Europe or to be out of Europe. And we have the manifesto of both on the newspaper.
In the next room, the saloon, a table is cut in the shape of the Mediterranean Sea, Pistoletto's idea for a special Mediterranean parliament.
We have 3 continents connected by the Mediterranean Sea: Africa, Europe, and Asia. And today we see how terrible is the situation, because all the conflicts are in the Mediterranean now. But it can be the parliament for the world, because the world needs a world parliament. But we can start from the Mediterranean Sea.
I was particularly surprised by the installation in the fountain outside, with just the roof and windscreen of a gold car partially submerged in the water. I thought it was a really remarkable work and a real clash, but also quite an interesting reference to the architecture of the palace and the use of gold, which refers to 4 gold globes on the roof of the palace.
When he told me the initial idea, I didn't quite see the impact that that work actually makes, and it's absolutely incredible, and people are just completely amazed by it, and they don't understand what's going on, which is completely fair.
I think it makes people think about the structures of power, about the splendor of Blenheim Palace with arte povera. I think it's something that even if you don't know about art history, that you feel when you see the work in this context.
I thought it would look great, but it looks even better than I hoped. I mean, I would love to have come up with the idea of parking a gold car in that fountain a long time ago, but I didn't.
We call it mirage. It is something that the people like, because, oh, wow, it's a disaster, but a gold disaster.
But the centerpiece to his Blenheim show is the work closest to his heart, the Third Paradise, suspended in the Great Hall.
Oh, I'm overwhelmed. Obviously, the Great Hall is beautiful in itself. It's the highest point of the palace. It has wonderful carvings. But that opening, the infinity figure here, with its colors and its beckoning in, I mean, it is quite wonderful. It has opened my eyes a lot to modern art, which I didn't have before.
The work absolutely links the past, the present, and the future, and I think it does that here extremely well, and I think it's an absolutely successful exhibition, and one that probably can't ever be repeated in such a way.
One of the things that people don't like about contemporary art is the feeling that there's not much to it, that when you dig beneath the surface, you're left with the feeling, is that it? And I think when you start digging beneath the surface of Pistoletto's work, you tend to find more and more. And the ramifications of these endlessly reflecting mirrors keep on going, taking you to a labyrinth of logic and ideas that all fit together in a very satisfying way.
Pistoletto is one of those grand masters who have existed as a giant within the contemporary scene, still making extraordinary work, still vital, still influential, and somebody who has absolutely taken on that bigger context of how art relates to the world in which we live today.
Brilliant ideas, powered by Hyundai Motor.